victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Penasini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, and joining me for another big week from Paradise and the NRL in general is my good mate, Sixties. Speaking of big weeks, mate, we have had a gargantuan week going all the way back to the Junior Eps, mate, and then rounding out a weekend later with the Blue and Gold Alliance Ted Solkovitz Memorial Golf Day, where we had a fantastic day, but a lot of work too. It was a cracking day at Parramatta Golf Course, mate. But how did you pull up? Because I know I had some aches and stiff parts of the body, my back, my left ankle, my right quad. You could tell which way I was favouring when I was squatting down and taking the pictures and whatnot because, geez, it felt every bit of my 37 years right then.
Well, John, I didn't want to feel all of my 64 years.
You were in your element out there, and we've got plenty of footage to share with fans in the coming days, and hopefully not too far beyond that. But yeah, you were on fire, mate, interviewing people, almost whining and dining without the alcohol.
Yeah, not one drop of alcohol touched these lips until everything had wrapped up about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But yeah, it was a big day out there. The picturesque Parramatta Golf Club, Billy Basson and the staff out there, absolutely wonderful there. And yeah, great. It was my first time on a golf course. First time
in a golf cart
driving
did all right. Didn't put her in the tank. We drove past a couple of ponds and you didn't put her in the tank, which is always a great start.
Went a bit too close to the ponds for my own liking, but that's another matter. So yeah, it was a great day, but as you said, it was a big end to the week with Thursday night with the Leagues Club, Parramatta Leagues Club appearance into the match, into the instant reaction, into being out there for 6:30 in the morning out at Parramatta. It was a big couple of days, but here we are. We've navigated that, and we apologise to our viewers for being just a little bit late coming back on because we've been navigating some technical difficulties, and we will have Joey Grima joining us live, but it may only be by voice. We're having some connectivity issues with PNG tonight, so
and it might be a briefer appearance than we would have hoped with Joey because he's such an incredible guest to have on board. But he is a busy man right now with everything happening up in PNG and Port Moresby. So we are very appreciative of his time.
With the High Commissioner tonight.
I believe right? He is. You talk about whining and dining. He's got some big wigs in the house. So Joey doing plenty of great things up there for PNG, and they're well, you say eventual. It's not too far off now. Expansion into the NRL.
So he'll be jumping in around 8, 8:15, something like that. But John, we've got a really big podcast to get through tonight. We're going to cover our Eels and NRL news as usual. Before we do, of course, shout out to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. John, also just a reminder, no matter what platform you're on, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that would be really appreciated by us. And don't forget as well, if you'd like to support us, you have the option of becoming a patron and clicking on the Patreon that you see on the homepage and at the bottom of all of our posts. So, we're going to work out some levels very soon with that. But for the time being, it's just $5 a month if you'd like to support us. So that would be great. John, I think we're just about ready to get into the news. So hit that stinger.
Yeah, plenty of regulars in chat as well. See, Chris Ricketts, obviously co-host of the show, but Michael Formosa, Carl, we got Kicks, Aussie, Mike. So good to have everyone back on board as we get into another week of Parramatta and NRL news. And on that note, like you said, let's hit the stinger.
News team, assemble!
Got the frog in the throat, mate.
Oh, yeah. Struggling, mate, struggling.
The high production qualities at the tip sheet never cease to amaze. All right, what's off the top of the docket, mate?
Okay. So, well, mate, let's start off with Team List Tuesday because there's a couple of big bits of news out of the team list. So I'll let you dive into that for us.
Yeah, so Parramatta Eels in that 6:00 p.m. Friday night pub slot up against Newcastle Knights. A bit of a familiar slot for Newcastle, not so much for the Eels. And Jason Riles with a couple of changes. One enforced by that injury to Bailey Simonson, 60s, who is out, unfortunately, for a considerable time now. I think he's due back slightly ahead of Sam Tuivasa in rounds 18 to 20 is his wing, though. Sam Tuivasa was 19 to 20 last week, round 19 now this week. But, yeah, Jason Riles making the following changes to the team list. None at fullback, as Zara Yongi is the number one, but Zach Lomax finally returns in the number two. He'll be playing down the right sideline alongside Will Penasini. So what was meant to happen a few weeks back, or more than a few weeks back, but then never eventuated because Lomax pulled out of that team list when he was named on the wing 60s. On the left edge, we've got Sean Russell and Josh Adokar. Dylan Brown and Mitchell Moses are in the halves, Mitch with the C next to his name. Jack Williams, Rowie Smith and Junior Barlaw in the front row. Matt Dury getting a chance to impress on that right edge. And he'll rotate with Jordan Samrani, presumably, with Dury maybe going back into that middle rotation in his second stint 60s. But for the meantime, starting on that right edge in place of Charlie Geimer, who drops out of the team. Gideon Katonga will be on the left, Jermaine Hopgood at lock forward. Then on the interchange, Dylan Walker, who's been so impressive for the Parramatta Eels this year, alongside Luca Moretti, Jordan Samrani, and the other big story, MOMAX, obviously the headline one for Team List Tuesday 60s, but geez, you always love to see a young fella earn his debut. And Toni Mataele, he's put in the hard yards across not just this year, but last year as well. And he's finally gotten the call. Number 17 off the interchange. Big Tony at 22 years of age, 190 centimetres tall, 108 kilos is his billing. Going to have a chance to make a bit of impression in that middle rotation 60s.
Yeah, obviously we've been following Tony since his junior rep days, and I'm pretty sure he came through in the same team as Will Penasini.
I believe you might be right.
Sean Russell, Jake Arthur, all those boys.
What a fitting team.
And I think they were all they may have all been Rouse Hill.
They might have all been. I mean, obviously we know that Arthur, Russell, and Will were all Rouse Hill, but alongside Samuel Luizio as well, I think.
Yes.
But what a fitting team to make his debut against the Newcastle Knights 60s. We always talk about the poetry and the almost like the script writing element of rugby league. Of course, the team that Toni Mataele left the Eels for, none other than the Novocastrians. So he spent a year there and then came back to Parramatta. Year and a bit there, came back to Parramatta.
I think it was a year, and because this is really going back now, it might have been. Was it in his final SG ball?
Final year of ball, I believe, 60s. Yes, I think you're right. And he was poached by the Knights, and then was there maybe there for a few years, but obviously didn't find it a great home for him. Came back to Parramatta, and he's worked diligently. Like he has earned this chance, and hopefully he can make a real fist of it this week. But that's not to say that he won't get more shots at it. But he's definitely earned the call up this year. He's plugged away really solidly in the New South Wales Cup, and he's been given the chance over a couple of our more storied forwards in that Cup team as well. So big shot for him, mate.
Yeah, look, he had a great preseason, as you noted. I said he was one of my tips to make a debut this year, and I watched him last week. He actually spent a bit of time training in the NRL team last week, and I was wondering because I saw him have a bit of a run even before the team list was announced, and I thought, are we going to see him named last week?
Yeah.
And then he continued to train through the week, and I thought, is he going to be a late change? And I had a chat to him at Kellyville, actually up in the coffee shop, and I said to him, you're pretty close, and he said, yeah, and he seemed really, obviously he's pretty keen to
make that jump. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's good to see that he's only had to wait another week from being that close, and of course, as we know, like the week before, Jordan Samrani had trained during the week and hadn't been named, and I'd sort of thought, and ended up playing in the second row the week before, and I thought maybe it might have been Toni last week, but it's just straight out being named on the interchange this week. So we're really, really happy to see that.
That is the fourth rookie debutant for the Eels, right? Obviously Riley, Sam, Jordan, and now I think I tipped 5 for the season 60s in our big season preview. So I took the number over you as well. So Jason Riles is not afraid to throw a young kid into the cauldron and give him a chance to shine or sink or swim, however you want to spin that. But and obviously Isaiah Young is essentially a rookie too, but he didn't make his debut with the Eels. Very exciting times. And I mean, there was in chat, obviously we had a couple of our good mates there in Ricketts and Formosa, and I think Michael was saying, no, it was Chris saying, sorry, that great to see Mataele rewarded for good form in the Reggies, but we are still lacking heavily in experience in the forwards, and our pack is getting killed every week. And that is always the risk, isn't it, when you go erring on the side of youth and opportunity, that you got to take those lumps. And it just means that there is more focus and pressure on the recruitment side of things now for the Eels to hit a home run or two when it comes to finding those balancing pieces and getting those guys that can be the sort of senior steely edge to the young guys that come in and bring all the energy.
Yeah, well, Shelley wrote a post this week about, she wants to see what direction we're going to take. She wants to see a bit more of the plan. And it's understandable because Eels fans are probably the most patient fans in the NRL, given the amount of time that we've been waiting.
I got a little flack for calling people to be a little bit patient in my weekend debrief, but that's the reality of having a new coach, mate, is that, yeah, it sucks to have to be told to be patient, but Riles is going to take a bit of time to get his vision executed here. And yeah, I'm saying being patient from a guy that's never seen a premiership 60s. I'm an 88 baby. I didn't get to see 81, 82, 83, 86. All I've had is grand final heartbreak and the cap cheating saga of 2016 and getting the bloody nines taken off us. Like, that is my legacy as a Parramatta fan. But
you're saying I'm being greedy, having seen.
It's not being greedy, mate. Like, and as you mentioned, the Eels fan base, it is the most patient and the most faithful among all Australian fan bases. But got to be just that much more patient right now, guys. Just because Riles, it's not even year one; it's the first third of year one, and he's going to take his time to just get the team under its feet.
Well, I guess step one is literally clearing the decks.
Clearly, yeah. He's talk about being aggressive with getting the youngsters in there. He's been even more aggressive in his roster management. He is not afraid to prune a branch or cast off a player that he feels isn't in his long-term vision. And again, it comes back to that concept of patience, because Riles isn't sitting here dawdling saying, well, we'll sit on the cap hit for this player or that player. No, he is saying, okay, if you're not part of the plan, you can seek an opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah, John, what I'd like to see, because you mentioned about, we've been dominated in the forwards in too often, and especially like last week, we were dominated through the forwards. But I really put that down to, yes, we need experience. We could do with a high profile middle, like just a really aggressive middle, perhaps a strike on the edge as well. Like they're two good starting points in terms of roster recruitment targets. But I still thought we went too lateral last week. I thought we could have engaged in that forward battle a little bit more. And I think it left the Dolphins forwards just with a bit more energy, because we weren't asking them to.
Which is why I think they teed off. They teed off in, I wouldn't say it was the final stanza, because we actually had the better of the running in that last 10 minutes. It felt like we finished fitter, but they were able to really tee off from like minutes 50 to maybe like 65. And we really struggled for traction in the ruck. So, and our backs have been doing a really good job this year. Like, we actually are, I think, a top 3, top 4 team in terms of backline production when it comes to the meterage and the ugly meters, the dirty meters. So we just need a couple of hard heads with good leg drive to be those, the glue pieces in the middle 60s. So anyway, that's I suppose a talk for another day, because we need to power through our itinerary here. But they're the changes in first grade, mate. Obviously,
and New South Wales Cup.
Yeah, no jersey flag, which means it's just the Cup who play the curtain raiser out at McDonald Jones. If you got the Friday Arvo off out at Newcastle, 3:30 p.m. kickoff is your timeline here. Otherwise, you can catch this one on Bar TV. And the Eels with a host of changes, mate. We mentioned how they looked underdone, under strength last week on the back of suspensions and mounting injuries. They get a host of players back this week. At fullback, Josh Papali comes back into the team after sitting out last week. That is a huge in, arguably the form player of the competition. Jake Tung will work the left sideline. Samuel Luiziu, we mentioned him earlier, he's back on the right. And that right sideline has really been a rotating carousel of whoever's fit on a given week, isn't it, 60s? Hayes Dunster,
Yep.
Samuel Luiziu. We've had more recently Bo Newlands last week, but we've had a few other players in that spot there this season. But one bit of consistency is in the centres now. Araz Namva and Richard Penasini combining for their third game together. Araz has played most of the season in Cup, but I think that's the third straight game of those two young centres playing in the back line together. Ronald Volkman also back and another boost to that spine. He partners Dean Hawkins. And you got Wittering McGregor returning from suspension. He replaces Toni Mataele in a like-for-like exchange of players. He'll partner Ryan Madison in the starting front row alongside Brendan Hands. Joey Grima comes down from first grade to play on the left edge, right, 60s? Because
I think so.
Bryce Cartwright plays right.
Bryce has been playing right.
Yeah, but Bryce does have that flexibility to swap sides, I guess. So stay tuned for that one. Dan Keir also back, a big boost there. He comes from the recovery ward on a quadriceps injury, I believe. And I think he's ahead of schedule. So good effort there from Dan. And I think he'll have the C next to his name. It'll be him or Dean. Then on the interchange, another returnee, Joey Lussick, back from that thumb surgery. He's also ahead of schedule by a week, which is good. Kane Kalachi, Brock Parker, and a rather luckless Will Latu 60s, getting bumped back to the bench by virtue of all the experience and talent ahead of him. Will's been one of their better players in the last fortnight, and hopefully he can find a way to figure for some good minutes against the Newcastle Knights because he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. John, last week, a lot of players missing out of that New South Wales Cup team. Really awful period, the 10 minutes before halftime.
24 points, from 14-0 up to 24-14 down.
Yeah, that basically was the match done and dusted there. I mean, it wasn't in that the Eels pulled back, but then the Bulldogs got more points again, and it was
a real Achilles heel for the Eels that week as well. 2 from 6 for Dean Hawkins versus 6 from 7 for Blake Taff. So the Dogs did finish with one more try, but for a good portion of that second half, the Eels could have been in front. They actually had more tries. More tries, but less conversions.
Yeah, and look, I guess it was one of those games where for both teams, defence wasn't a priority.
No.
And they were both playing away up at Tamworth. It just felt like one of those games where there was, I mean, you don't expect NRL intensity in New South Wales Cup, but it was fair to say there was minimal intensity in that game. So anyway, we move on. As you say, there's no jersey flag this week. Unfortunately, we had 3 losses, 3 from 3 last week. Don't really want to talk about it too much because there were so many changes. Like the jersey flag had a host of players.
Yeah, flag and Cup were really victims of a mounting injury and suspension toll that they've really battled through valiantly, but got caught up against a pretty solid set of outfits in the Canterbury Bulldogs in the lower grades. Yeah,
it was so far and away the worst performance from the jersey flag this season. We had a couple of young debutants in jersey flag in Lorenzo Talatina and Isaac Jim. I wouldn't say that it was a game which allowed them to showcase their wares at all. It was just it wasn't a great game, and it was played on one of the worst fields you'd ever see.
50 different mixed lines marked on Hammondville.
If there's anyone that hasn't seen the game or footage of the game, the amount of lines that were there on the field, I don't know how the players were able to distinguish where the sideline was. I mean, they had a couple of markers to say this line is the sideline, but the cross-field lines continued across through extra lines. Like you could literally say there was 2 more sidelines out there beyond the actual sideline with the lines going through to them. So it's amazing that no one got super confused and lost their bearings running over the sideline, because there was that. Then of course, the field wasn't in great condition, really.
No.
I mean, it was really a local park when it came to what the condition of the ground was in. There were some bare patches. It just was, I don't know. I mean, it's probably a very good ground for local rugby league.
But for the standards that you'd expect to be holding up for the Flegg Cup, yeah. And look, we've spoken about some of the venues in the scheduling this year. It's been a bit bizarre. It has definitely been on the more bizarre side of the spectrum, 60s, and that's not an excuse for why they lost, but it does make it a bit frustrating. It's a goldfish week for them, isn't it? I mean, the Flegg do have that global bye now. Curiously, they're not playing that makeup game against the Seagulls. There is a secondary global bye in round 21 off the top of my head. I was talking about this today to someone. So I am surprised that the Seagulls and Eels are not playing that makeup game in the Flegg from round, was it 4 60s?
Yeah.
Or thereabouts. But, they got the week off, a chance for those SG ball boys to get further integrated and orientated and come out of that recharged and a bit of vigour to kick some ass and take some names against whoever their opposition is in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and speaking about in 2 weeks' time, I mean, this week we've got MOMAX happening, where Mitch Moses and Zach Lomax are able to combine for the first time this season. Of course, after that, you've got Origin, and we'll definitely lose Mitch Moses to Origin.
That's almost a certainty, yeah.
He will be selected at 5'8".
There we go. There we go. I don't know if there's a market for that, but Craig is out there telling you.
Yeah, no, we'll guarantee he'll be selected at 5'8" in that game. What we don't know is whether Lomax is likely to be selected. I'm going to say he won't be selected.
I think Latrell's put in a timely big effort as well. That'll get him on the selection radar. Tommy's going to have too much talent, to Toni Mataele, it is, to say no to, even though those in-game injuries are a real concern. And being greedy as an Eels fan, that's not a bad thing, obviously.
No. Look, I'm quite happy for Manly to get lots of selections. They can take both the Trebojeviches. They can take Queensland can take DCE. New South Wales can also take Olakau'atu. And, we don't really want to hand over Mitch Moses, but he will be called up for 5'8".
Okay,
so
Craig, we're going to pivot now because Joey's coming in. Okay. You there, Joey?
Wait to speak to you guys. Can you hear me well?
Craig, you hearing Joey?
Yeah, I'm hearing Joey.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Okay, let me bring in. We've got a great little graphic of Joey here. We haven't got Joey live, but here's a picture of Joey and a nameplate.
Well, we've got him live. We haven't got his.
Sorry, we haven't got his image live. So we haven't got that cracking grin that I know he's always sporting for us. But very great to have you on the show, Joey. How you doing, mate?
Mate, it's so great to be here after such a long time, and seeing us 3 weeks ago just brought back great memories. And I know your listeners or your podcast.
They're watchers now, Joey. They're watchers.
Viewers.
I know. Yes, I know they can't see me, but they can certainly hear from my excitement, the smile that I'm giving back to those beautiful people back in Australia, mate. It's great to be here, and it was really, really cool to see you guys 3 weeks ago at Leichhardt Oval.
Yeah, well, it's there's a couple of things I want to talk about with that as well, Joey. But first of all, how exciting is it as well that we've got another name that's going to be familiar to you, Toni Mataele, named to make his debut for the Eels this week.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And to Toni, it's nice to see someone that's persevered for such a long period of time. And a lot of your viewers may not know that Tone, after the SG Ball Grand Final, lost to Illawarra. He decided to move up to the Newcastle and, try his luck there, and didn't like it because he loved what Parramatta had to offer, and came back and persevered. I think he came back for 3 or 4 years, 60s, and now he's making his debut, and good on him, mate. He deserves it. He's worked hard. He's had a few injuries and overcame a lot of things. And it's nice to have one of our own debut.
And also, Joey, you mentioned us catching up at Leichhardt Oval the other week, and you'll have to assume that the hug that we gave you was also representative of a number of people who've been in touch with us saying to give you a hug. So that seems to be the theme for all of our people that have reached out to say, give Joey a hug. We miss him. But there was no doubt a lot of young Parramatta players there in both the girls both the girls teams and also the SG ball that you would have had a bit to do with over the years, and it would have, made you so proud to see them in those grand finals.
Yeah, you're right, Craig. From 3 years ago, my last interaction there, there was a lot of young players, both young ladies and young men, that were coming through our Pathways programs. And not only players, 60s, but we had some staff there. There was a very young emerging super female coach, Shah Henry, coming through, and a very exuberant and experienced Ryan Walker. And not many people know this, but Mitch Lewis, his father, Mick, was my assistant coach in 2008, and Mitch used to come down to training all the time as a young kid, just in year 7 and year 8. So not only did, I have so much, my heart was full that week, that day, that grand final day, because some of those young men and women that came into our programs, the Parramatta programs at 13, 14 or 15, had developed into beautiful rugby league players. And, Lisa Fiola and Tasha Gale won. And unfortunately, our SG ball just got pipped on the post. And I could understand, people saying, I'll give Joey a hug, because it's reciprocated. Myself, Adriana, my wife, and my 2 kids, we all love the Parramatta family.
Joey, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute about football, but there is a comment in chat that I wanted to share with you from one of our regulars in Gallagher, who says that Joe Grima is easily one of the nicest, most genuine league identities that I've had a pleasure to meet. A Parramatta icon. Love this guy. And I said to Gallagher, that is bang on, because you are legitimately one of the nicest, most genuine people in the rugby league community going around. And anyone that's seen Joey at not just Leichhardt, but at Combank, New Era, all the stomping grounds for the Parramatta Eels and the junior reps, it's almost like watching the Pope come to town, isn't it, 60s? Just everyone. Everyone goes out of their way to say hello to him and take a minute or 5 of his time, and he is always giving. So, Joey, it's
Jono, it's beautiful to hear, and I really appreciate your viewers for saying that. And what you see is what you get. And
yeah,
I feel very honoured and fortunate, given the journey that I've had with my family and that. And you know what you see is what you get, and I'm going to continue to do that, because
you there, Joey?
Are the ones that have allowed me to get that opportunity.
Yes. Yeah, look, you've got a wonderful family there, Joey, and we just touched on a little bit on. First of all, you mentioned Ryan Walker and Shah Henry, and Shah and her partner Milor. They were certainly passed on their thoughts about us giving you a hug if we get the chance as well. So, but I want to give a shout out to your son, Frankie, Joey, who was there at Leichhardt on the other week with you, and he's just such a passionate Parramatta supporter, mate.
Oh, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree there, man. Frankie bleeds blue and gold. He has for quite some time. He's I feel really sad, not because Parramatta's our team and when they lose we get upset, but he takes it really to heart, and it actually it ruins his whole weekend, the poor fella. And you know what I say to him, mate? We just got to stick with him, and he'll go out the front of the house and he'll put his flag and stick it in between the brickwork and the light and make sure that it's flag. It doesn't matter what the scoreline is, and he's part of the swarm, the swarm gang, and He parades from the club he just loves it. And I just think, you know what, that's what sport's about. Sometimes we can get a little bit overzealous about winning and losing, but for young Frank, he just loves, that's his whole life. All he wants for Christmas is a new jersey, a new calendar, and a membership from Parramatta. So, yeah, I'm really happy that he loves rugby league as much as what you, myself, or the three of us do. And when I'm living in Papua New Guinea, my wife's been great. My daughter, they drop him off. They take him to Parramatta Stadium where he's with his new friends, the Swarm. So really proud of him, mate. He loves it, and he's got a good footy brain, footy knowledge too. And
look,
he said to me, Dad,
you know,
do you reckon I could be a referee? And I said, no, mate, you wouldn't be a referee because Parramatta would never lose a game.
Maybe we do need him to be a referee, mate. That sounds like not half a bad result there.
Yeah, we do get we don't very much get the rub of the green sometimes, so he might be a good chance for a referee.
Well, it could be like Joey. Whenever you jump in and do some refereeing at training back in the day, we knew that the penalties would have to at least go Parramatta's way, no matter which way your arm pointed.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I don't think we'll let him become a referee on that 60s.
Alrighty. Look, we've got some specific questions about your role in the PNG pathways and that road to the eventual introduction into the NRL proper. But firstly, mate, we know how rugby league mad PNG is, and obviously we had the big announcement going back a while now that PNG would be inducted into the NRL as one of the expansion franchises. We got the Australian side of that news, mate. Can you tell us what the reaction was up there in PNG?
Yeah, I don't know if you can actually understand the reaction of the news being announced. People at first didn't believe that Papua New Guinea were going to have their own official team into the NRL. A lot of people thought that it was a change in what the Hunters were going to do in the Host Plus Cup in the Queensland competition. They didn't believe until, it was official and the Prime Minister Marape came out and said that, and it was in the papers. They couldn't understand or comprehend that their greatest dream of supporting their own NRL team would come to fruition. And it's a game changer, guys, because already we've seen the excitement and the added dedication and discipline and compliance, because there is a real genuine pathway now and opportunity, albeit for a small amount of these young men, but now they've got someone to support that's their own. They won't. They don't have to go for the Brisbane Broncos or the Melbourne Storm or the North Queensland Cowboys, which most of them do. To say it was life-changing, particularly for young boys and girls playing rugby league, could be an understatement. And just with what's happening and the growth of our development and academy pathways and the financial investments too, with a lot of the companies over here. So from a fiscal management, governmental policy type of thing, but more so for us, just you can feel the excitement when you go to games. Everyone knows that, I'm involved with the NRL bid, and they say, oh, there's Big Blood Joe, they call me Big Joe, because they know that I'm involved with the NRL bid. And it's just exciting times, guys.
Joe, can you first of all explain what your role there entails?
Sure, mate. Currently living overseas in PNG, and we are essentially the Parramatta Eels. The PNG RFL, the governing body, are, for better terms, New South Wales Rugby League. So essentially, I run or oversee the academy program structure. It's a high.
He'll come back. Oh, you there, Joey?
It's not. Yeah, I got you here, mate. It's a high-performance development system designed to prepare young Papua New Guinean players or athletes for the elite or the next jump up in competitions. And with the long-term vision of supporting our franchise when it eventually does come in 2028. So it's no different to the Parramatta Eels or the Penrith Panthers or the Cronulla Sharks or the Brisbane Broncos. You've got various age groups and you identify some of the areas that they need to flourish or grow in. And ours, it's the fundamental skill development and the understanding of rugby league. Because in Papua New Guinea, guys, you don't necessarily play competition rugby league until you're 14 or 15, whereas in Europe, New Zealand, England, and Australia, you play sports at a young age of 5 or 6. So we do lose a lot of fundamental development when we compete against other teams. So what it is, I focus on the skill development, the education part, the tactical and the technical stuff, and the cultural alignment to ensure the players are ready for that opportunity if they do get to the next level. A lot of these young men and young women have never travelled away from their own village. So to put them on a plane and come to Port Moresby and participate in a national championships grand final is a big deal. So if you can imagine that, but magnified by 7 locations. So if I can give you a lesson in geography of the structure of Papua New Guinea, I run a year 7 and 8 academy, a year 9 and 10 academy, a year 11 and 12 academy, and an opens women's academy. So I basically use the blueprint. We've got a Harold Matthews Cup, SG Ball Cup, a Young Jersey Flag Cup, and a Lisa Fiola Cup. But I've got them in 6 locations throughout Papua New Guinea. So to give you a proximity of where they are, we've got one in Wollongong, one in Canberra, one in Newcastle, one in Parramatta, one in Cronulla, and one in Coffs Harbour. So we've got Port Moresby where I'm based, but I do travel out to the other locations where we've got our satellite programs. So now where Parramatta would have 30 players in each program, we've got 120. So we capture 720 of what we feel are the best players in those 6 or 7 regions, and we coach, educate, and have the same coaching philosophies as each other. So I write the program similar to what I had done when I'm at Parramatta, and it just ensures that the young year 7 and 8 that is in Mount Hargett in the highlands of Papua New Guinea is doing the same training regime or program than the young lady who's based in New Guinea Islands in the same academy. So that's basically my goal, just to create environments that are safe and professional where they're learning a craft, but in a way where you can fast track them, because we've only got 3.5, 4 years before we get into the NRL. And sure, they're all not going to make it and there's going to be a transition process, but my job is to create a sustainability where we can do that. And in the next 2 years, men, we go from 6 or 7 regions to 12, 13, 14 regions. So now we're actually creating our own Harold Matthews Cup in Papua New Guinea. And me being selfish as the Parramatta Eels, I just want to pick the best 20 or 30 and work with those young men. So that gives you an idea and a snapshot as to what we're doing over here.
I remember the numbers when you used to quote them for Parramatta were crazy, and to think that it's upscaled that much more, pretty much well over double. Because remember you looked over 400 young men and women at Parramatta at one point, and you're up.
Yep. So
yeah.
We're about to roll out to a new area in November this year. So we're going to be pushing near 1,000.
Oh my God.
But we have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's reality, isn't it? Because like you said, you've got that timeline that you're trying to accelerate on ahead of that NRL debut for the country and the franchise. And
Exactly, Jono.
And I suppose one thing that really comes back to that, and speaking about the job that not just you've been doing, but PNG Rugby League has undertaken in their journey, was the result last year. And of course, the end of season trip for the Australian schoolboys and now schoolgirls up to PNG and Port Moresby is a real highlight of the calendar alongside that Prime Minister's 13 squads. And last year we saw an incredible result, mate. The PNG schoolboys team achieved a draw against an absolutely loaded Australian schoolboys team that featured a few Eels, actually. How important was that performance and that result for the team and for rugby league and PNG in general?
Yeah, I think not only for the junior Kummels, but the junior Orchids as well. I reckon it was a landmark result for rugby league in PNG.
Yeah, I agree.
And it probably showed the rest of the rugby league world that our younger players can compete against the very best. I mean, if you go back to the year before, we were in front with 2.5 minutes to go.
That's right, you were.
And Lachlan Galvin kicked that bomb, and they got a lucky bounce and scored. Last year, they had a number of NRL players that are currently playing at the moment. So the beauty about that is that now we know that we can compete against the very best in the world. And that performance is a culmination of only 2 years of an investment into our pathways. So it now gives our younger men and women who are coming through these academy programs, and hopefully that maybe one day become a junior Kummel or junior Orchid, it just gives them the belief that they do and can and maintain and withstand and belong to their stage of playing elite rugby league. And that's what Papua New Guinea needs, because we need to maintain that into the more senior levels. And who knows, eventually in the next World Cup, it might be a tight race between Tonga, Samoa, and PNG for that third or fourth spot, which is where that we want to take rugby league. But we don't want to put the cart before the horse. But certainly that was a landmark game for our boys and girls. Our girls narrowly lost against the junior Gillaroos or the female schoolgirls. And our boys, as we know, we had a draw. So really gives us hope, and it really gives us a level of, belief we are doing the right thing. Because one thing that we have in Papua New Guinea in abundance are rugby league players. We've got competitions. We've got rugby league teams. We've got rugby league players. We've got potentially 1.5, 2 million rugby league players from the age of 13 to 15, 16 in Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, population of nearly 11 million. It's a big resource.
Jono, people say the population's between 11 million and 14.5 million.
Jeez,
but it's just going back to your question, Jono, it just means that it gives the young boys and girls, the men and women, the people in rugby league, not just rugby league, but in sport, but in this case rugby league, that they do belong and can join and play against Australia and New Zealand and England and players like that. So it was a really, really great opportunity, and one that I think has been a game changer for us, Jono.
Well, Joey, I mean, we were really excited in that game, and thinking of you and all the work that you've been putting in, and you've just talked about all these pathways that you're setting up. And I find it interesting that last week, in talking about the two new NRL franchises, Buzz Rothfield said that both Western Australia and PNG do not have rugby league pathways. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to get your response to that. And I mean, we've heard quite a bit about your response to that already. So would you like to address it even more directly?
Yeah, look, I respectfully disagree with what Buzz has said. And, we've spent the last couple of years building this pathway system through Papua New Guinea. We started off as a pilot program in Port Moresby. We investigated and went through the learnings, and then we rolled it out into 6 regions. We're the largest one club rugby league academy program in any NRL catchment area. And our academies now feed into our national squads, schoolboys teams, and fit into our hunters teams. So the evidence is there. Our boys and girls are competing and winning against top tier Australian teams. The pathway's real, and at this stage, I got to say it's working.
Joey, I've got to ask you this. Have you had time to sleep since you've been up there? Like setting all of this up, it's enormous.
It is. And you know what, 60s, when I spoke to Adriana and the kids about this opportunity, we knew it was going to be something that was going to be challenging for everyone. And I'm here 3 weeks and I go back to Australia for 5 days in the month. But I knew it was going to be like the 60s, and I needed the challenge. I needed to rekindle my love for rugby league. And this job and my family allowing me to do this fly in and fly out has allowed me to go back and to feel like I felt when I first got my first job at Parramatta as an assistant coach in the development squad. It's just so raw. These young men and women are just...
it's on the frontier. We've mentioned that with you in the past, isn't it? You are on the cutting edge of rugby league here. Like it's unbroken ground.
It's big, Jono. And if we get this right, it's only a matter of time until the cavalry come, 60s and Jono. It's, CEO Andrew Hill's done a wonderful job in, setting up this. He's been coming in and out of PNG for 20 years. Very, very smart man in the setup of Papua New Guinea. And it's only a matter of time. The next, 12 months, there's going to be more staff that come on board. And the cavalry arrive, and then we'll be able to breathe and settle down. But without the hard work, and it takes the right person to do this job. And given my rekindling for rugby league, I think that this job is a perfect match for me. I got the okay from Adriana and the family, and I had to go all in or nothing, because if you don't go all in, you're going to disappoint yourself and you're going to disappoint the people here. So to answer your question, I do sleep 60s. But not a lot. But it is. I am getting a little bit older now, so I am going to bed quite early now. So it's actually helped me sleep 60s, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
I remember when you broke.
I really enjoy this.
The excitement you had when you broke that news to us that you were leaving the Eels, not for being happy to get out of the Eels, because you bleed blue and gold, but just the opportunity to do something incredible in rugby league. You were so like a kid. Like a kid on Christmas. It was a great look, mate. So really good stuff.
No one can duplicate this, Jono. No. It's like there's a saying that I have, because I can speak Tok Pisin, because I've been living here. The language here, they call pidgin. The proper pronunciation is Tok Pisin. And we got this saying, "Nokken mekin tumbana story, ye must come in tumbana story." What I mean by that, when I coached the junior Kummels, we had this saying that we don't want to become history playing against the junior Kangaroos. We want to make history. A team has never, ever beat, a Papua New Guinea team has never beat an Australian team in any test match at any level. Yeah. And that's what keeps me. That's what keeps me going. And if you see these young boys and girls at training, if you see what they had to do to get to training, and I'm talking, Jono, and 60s, I'm talking that, to get to a competition, they've got to get on a banana boat and go up a stream for 2.5 hours and then go for a 2.5 hour walk to play a game that's got 2 10-minute halves and do the same back, and they wouldn't even flinch because they played rugby league. That's what I get to witness every week, particularly when I go to the regional, rural, or jungle areas. It's just unbelievable. And
Craig?
Oh, sorry. Joe, you there?
Yeah, go ahead, mate.
Oh, sorry. I did. Oh, it just reminded me when you first went up there to Papua New Guinea, and I remember you had the first lot of, I guess you'd call them open trials that you had for some Pathways players, and you sent some video and photos and those sorts of things. Just the throng of young teenagers that were there to trial, and and players were there without boots. The fields, people in Australia wouldn't play on fields like that. And just their passion for it, I remember just how enthused you were about the passion that these young people had. And it wasn't a case of, they didn't think at all about what they didn't have. It was all about what they were going to do.
The opportunity, the excitement around that.
And that's the biggest opportunity. If someone said, Joe, what's the greatest thing that you can do for Papua New Guinea? It's to give them an ability to dream that they can. Now they can, Jono. Now they can, 60s, because now we've got an NRL team in 2028. I couldn't tell you now who the coach is going to be, or what our CEO or recruitment manager, or how many Papua New Guineans is going to be in the 30. But in 5, 10 years' time after that, now we're really shaping lives and shifting mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's what it's about. And if you can get a young boy or 720 young boys and girls to training for a couple of hours a week, that means they're doing something wholesome, they're doing something safe, enjoyable, and it's great for their mental health.
Yep.
Because I know there's 1.5, 2 million people here that we don't have to teach them to play rugby league, but we have to teach them the fundamentals and the technical parts of rugby league. Mate, this is not going to be a problem to find rugby league players. So that's what excites me. And going back to this question you asked me 10, 15 minutes ago, that's what really excites me, that I feel like it's the first time I started semi-professional coaching again.
That's a great insight.
And of course, and I was going to say, what's something that makes us proud as Parramatta supporters is that 2 Parramatta people in yourself and Andrew Hill are the ones driving this sort of everything that's happening. Well, not everything, but a fair chunk of what's happening up there in this PNG franchise.
Yeah, he's probably the unsung hero in all of this. I know that, I kiss babies and hug people and high five people and that. And he's a little bit, less extroverted than me, if that's a real word. But he's the unsung hero. He's been coming here for 20 years. And for him, this is the second or third time that the NRL bid has rolled it out. And, I think it's crucial, him being the main focal point and having, Prime Minister Albanese and Prime Minister Marape come to this agreement. And now we've got an NRL team. So it's pretty cool working with him. We've got a good relationship together, and we work well together.
Joey,
whilst challenging, we work together.
I want to power through our next few questions because we don't want to keep you here too much longer, but we actually do have a viewer tuning in from Papua New Guinea, Maoni Junior Iramu, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, mate. He's saying he's excited for the progress, and he actually has a question for you, asking what do you think of the Digicel Cup?
Well, the Digicel Cup, you may not know, or your viewers may not know, that there's 12 teams in the Digicel Cup, and they represent 12 different regions, 12 different areas. We have 4 based in Port Moresby, and the others are based throughout the regional and rural areas of Papua New Guinea, as well as including New Guinea Islands. Now, people in Australia or listening or watching this podcast may not know that the 12 teams of the staff and the players are full-time. So this competition of Papua New Guinean men and their coaching staff and support staff is a full-time job. They are full-time. So and when you talk about tribalism, you talk about South Sydney and the Roosters, you talk about Parramatta and now the Panthers, but it used to be the Bulldogs. You have that every week because you've got one province or state playing against another province, particularly if it's the Highlands. Mate, it is brutal. Again, the standard of competition, because of the Papua New Guineans' aggressive nature, they probably are penalised more than what teams are in Australia. But certainly the atmosphere, the excitement, the passion that they play with, and the crowds that come to these games are enormous. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, the more younger people we transition upwards, and don't go into the SP Hunters or into the Kummels or Orchids programs, they're going to be put into this Digital ExxonMobil Cup competition, and they're only going to strengthen it, make the competition more skillful. And what we intend to do is make the Digital ExxonMobil Cup the third best competition in Australasia. You've got the NRL, and then you've got the two Q Cup and New South Wales tiers. And then under that, you've got the Digital Cup. From a tribal spectacle, from an excitement spectacle, from a supporting spectacle, it's as good you've ever seen. It's like a mini state of origin every week. So I thank your viewer for his question. And I'll say to him, look whom you behind. That means see you later. I'll catch up with him.
Good stuff, Joey. Now let's get you through these last few questions, mate, because we know that you're doing all the stuff on the ground in Port Moresby and in Papua New Guinea. You mentioned all the regional and the sort of rural areas. But the other exciting thing, the development that happened recently, is that the ARLC, don't roll back one too fast, sorry, ARLC, recently announced that there is an initiative now that will allow all the current 17 NRL clubs to sign up to 2 PNG Pathways players with their salaries being made exempt from the top 30 and the supplementary or development list. So how will that work, mate? And give us an example of what will be your role in the PNG franchise's role in making recommendations or lists, like listing players for those 17 franchises to pick up and develop.
That's a really good question, Jono. Firstly, I think it's a fantastic initiative, the ARLC, considering or thinking about this. The process is still being finalised, and there's still some things that they need to work out, and not everything is concrete at the moment. But the academy plays a key role because we're already identifying young men and young women that are coming from school programs into more elite-based programs, and we're getting them ready for that next step. So it's probably too hard, and I don't know enough about it. But, yeah, we certainly work close, with the NRL to ensure that, there's a proper structures and systems put in place, both on and off the field. But I think there's still a lot more to come out, and things may change.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just put that. I'll shelve that at the moment, Jono, and maybe we can come back in another month or something. Yeah,
it is like one of those initiatives that seems really cool on the surface, but there'd be a lot under the surface that moving pieces and a lot of things, because you're servicing 17 clubs on top of PNG itself, and that's
exactly.
It's not a simple task, is it, mate?
Yeah, and look,
no, it's not.
We're gonna dive into some of the questions that have been submitted, and then John might also have some that are there live as well as the one that was just put forward by one of our PNG viewers. But I'm just going to go through, and Joey, there might be ones here that you can't answer, right? And that's cool. I'm sure people understand that because your role's there in Pathways, and there's been a few questions submitted that might be a little bit away from Pathways. But this one comes from Mitchie and also another follower named Hawko, and they're curious about how attractive it will be for players, especially marquee players, to sign with PNG. So, and I just thought maybe you could answer this from your own experience. What have you enjoyed about your time in PNG that maybe marquee players might enjoy? And do you think that will help to attract marquee signings?
Well, I'll answer your second question first. The one main thing that I love over here is the people and how they treat me and my family. Frank's about to come over here in the next school holidays, and my whole family's been here already. The way that people greet you, they present themselves to you, the way they make you feel. There's a lot of innuendo and disappointment comments about Papua New Guinea, saying how much violence there is. I've been here living here for 2 years, and I feel as safe here than I do when I go back to the area that I live in, or in Sydney, or whatever the case may be. So first and foremost, it's the way that people welcome you here. It's their cultural welcoming. It's the way that they embrace you, particularly because they know you're involved in rugby league and you're here to do something for their country. They embrace you even more. The other thing is that there are some wonderful places here. The disappointing thing about PNG is that if you live in Port Moresby, well, you can't drive anywhere. You must fly everywhere, which is also disappointing, but an excellent opportunity because there are some of the best surfing, diving, reef locations in the world on Papua New Guinea coast. There's the Kokoda track. There's many, many different tourist things that you can do. But you need to understand that you just can't drive. You must fly everywhere. Port Moresby, if you live outside Port Moresby, you have to fly everywhere. So if I lived in Sydney and I wanted to travel to Newcastle or Wollongong, I couldn't drive. I would have to fly there. So the two things are the people, the locations, and the third one, and is the big one, I just can't wait until 2028. If there is a person that wants to challenge, they want to be recognised and be household names and do something that they've never done before, and that's be the first squad players to represent a club, then that's the opportunity for Papua New Guinea. Being the first person, first recruitment squad to represent a brand new franchise, to be welcomed and be treated like rock stars in the most positive way, I mean, and the opportunity when you have a little bit of downtime that there are some of the best places, most beautiful places in the world in your backyard.
Well, I can imagine what it must be, what it's going to be like for players there, because they'll become household names for a nation up there when they start playing for the PNG team. Now, I've got another question. This person's called Hardly On. And so their question, you've sort of answered already about how much rugby league talent is there in Papua New Guinea. And I think you've also answered in a way, their other part of their question, is there a reason that only a limited number of players have had an NRL, only a limited number of players who've come directly from PNG have had an NRL career so far?
Yeah, I've already answered the first one. We don't know exactly how many players there are, but we know there's boys and girls, young men, young women in abundance playing all over Papua New Guinea. Part of the reason what I feel that there has been a limit on the amount of players either playing in the Super League, which is becoming more apparent now, and in
Yes.
the NRL or the QRL and the New South Wales Cup. I think it's basically because there hasn't been the investment as there is now with the academies and talent identification programs that we're running now. Whilst we got 12 teams that are full-time in the strongest competition in Papua New Guinea, they never sustained their own senior team with junior pathways. So I would imagine that you will see, well, we hope so, given what we've done in the 2 years, in the next 3 and 4 and 5 years, your viewer who sent this question may see a change in, the amount of people, more people being exported to Super League and given an opportunity in the NRL. We've already had, CEOs from NRL clubs come over to Papua New Guinea. We've had player agents here travelling into Papua New Guinea to watch schoolboy tournaments and schoolgirl tournaments. So I think now that people are taking Papua New Guinea a little bit more serious, and it obviously on the back of the junior Orchids and the junior Kummels games over the last couple of seasons, has resonated with them and thinking that there could be an opportunity and it's untapped over here. So I think in time, your viewer who sent this question will probably see a bit of a shift in the number of players that are given opportunities at that super elite level.
Yeah, and I want to thank and also apologise to our viewers. Well, not so much apologise, but I hope they understand that we can't really ask you about like what's going to happen in the way of recruitment and who the targets are and that sort of thing, because, well, for a start, that's not your area, but also it's a little bit down the track before that happens. So, John, have we got any there from our viewers?
It's mostly just appreciation for the magnitude of the task that Joey's undertaking. There is a cheeky comment from Chris saying that maybe Joey can send a few of the more talented youngsters Paris way for old time's sake. Maybe as part of that ARLC initiative, we might get the pick of the crop, maybe, Joey. But, just a wink, wink, nudge, nudge there. But
hey,
yes.
Joey,
Yeah.
Joey, just quick question. Chris Petrus from our SG ball team, he's a PNG heritage, isn't he?
Say that again, mate. You just dropped out.
Yeah, sorry. Chris Petrus from the Eels SG ball team. Is he of PNG heritage?
Absolutely, he is. And in fact, I had some contact within the last couple of days. So we're obviously, well, I'm obviously looking for eligibility for the Junior Kummels program. And he is someone that does satisfy the eligibility. So, yeah, it's funny you say that. I just received some correspondence over the last couple of days about him. He's definitely eligible.
Can play, Joey.
Good talented back rower is young Chris. So he had a great grand final.
Well, I watched most. Yeah, this is what you mean about do I sleep 60s? Not only do I watch every NRL game and most of the Q Cup games and New South Wales Cup games, I downloaded and watched every Parramatta Junior Rep game, and yeah, and I know your viewer was having a bit of a tongue in cheek about bringing to Parramatta, because I feel Parramatta has one of its more successful years. Harold Matthews,
yes,
finished in the finals. The two ladies teams won. So I think the staff and the coaching staff at Parramatta are doing a tremendous job. We just hope that they can hold on to the really good ones. So yeah, but I do watch all the games, and I know I've heard and I've seen him. He's not a bad back rower. Yes, he is.
Alrighty, yep. Joey, you've given us plenty of time, mate. We know you're a busy man, so we will let you loose now. Thank you for giving everyone a huge update on how PNG is travelling as they prepare for that 2028 launch. And really exciting times, mate. And I guess we have to check in with you ahead of that schoolboys clash later in the year, because that's going to be a huge one. That's a real circle the date in the calendar.
I got one better for you, 60s, and I got one better for you, Jono. I think that the Cumberland throw.
Oh, no. I know this is going.
Yep. Should come over and live broadcast the Junior Kummels, the Junior Kangaroos, or the Australian Schoolboys, the Junior Orchids, and the Australian Gillaroos at the end of this year.
We'll have to...
Can't you imagine? You can imagine John doing a live call on that.
Oh goodness. We'll have to kick the tires on that one, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be an incredible experience, no doubt. So we'll have to see if we can pull some strings.
I reckon you should. And even, I don't know, do the Cumberland Throw tour. Get a group to arrange for you guys to come over here. You organise it with a touring group. Come over here. You can catch up with me. I'll take you to Owen's Corner, the end of the Kokoda track, and you'll see one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen in your life, and that's the War Cemetery in Port Moresby.
No, well said, mate. We have to work that one for you, so we'll stay tuned for that one for our listeners and our watchers. But
good on you guys.
In the meantime, Joey, thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you for all the support and all the comments. My family and I are humbled, and we appreciate your friendship too, you two Palookas. I love you dearly. And to all your viewers and that, if you haven't got a second team or you want to look for a second team, get onto the PNG boys. They may not win every game, but they'll give every effort for every game.
I reckon they're going to be more than a few fans' second team once they're inducted into the NRL. And it's going to be a very exciting journey, Joey. They're going to be one of the...
definitely. Yeah, can definitely see that happening, Joey. Thank you so much for tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you for, getting through some of the technical issues that we've had with getting this happening tonight. And we wish you well for what lies ahead over the next few months before we speak to you next.
Love you guys. Love your listeners and viewers too. Thank you, guys.
Catch you, Joey.
Thanks, Joey.
Alrighty, so that was a nice little change of gears there, 60s, as we had our good mate Joey on to talk about PNG and everything happening up there. Now, where were we? We were
in the middle of Eels news,
Eels
actually,
news.
John.
I think we'd sort of broken up the 3 grades of our games, and we're about to talk about looking at our docket and Mitchell Moses for Origin, mate. So let's move on to that one there.
Well, I think we've gone all in and said he will play 5'8" in Origin.
Yep.
What I did want to touch on quickly was Jared Hayne made his return, playing for Wenty on the weekend. He said he's got a bit of weight that he wants to lose for a start, and it was he struggled in the last 10 minutes of the game. There was evidence of some of his silky skills there. He laid on a try with a beautiful cutout pass. He was certainly difficult for opponents to bring to the ground. I'm sure he's probably got a goal of being able to be, considered for New South Wales Cup selection late in the year. But I also think he's got a lot that he wants to be able to give back at that level at Wentworth Phil. So we'll say good on Jared for being able to get back onto the field and move on. Back to some Parramatta news. John, a host, well, more than a host.
Galaxy of young
players.
stars. Yes, a
galaxy
of young stars.
That's it. That's a good one. A galaxy of young stars, young Parramatta stars that have been selected in the annual City versus Country fixtures. And I'll just run through these. So we've got the City team, and virtually all of them are City selections.
Yep.
Although there is one Country selection, which is significant.
Pretty good player, teams, I can see, yeah.
Yes, in the City teams for the boys in the 16s, Hayden Bell and Caleb Liatoa. In the boys 18s City team, Cameron Bamblett, Lincoln Fletcher, Anders Johansson, Ryder Talangi, and, of course, 2 coaching representatives. Mitch Lewis, who Joey spoke about, is the coach, and Noah Mears is the assistant coach. In the female side of things, they have 17s and 19s rather than 16s and 18s. And in the City team, we have Isabella Bell, and Freedom Crichton Rapati, Katia Duff, Bailey Marchong, Kaysen Morgan Pritchard, Aray Surveyor, Mira Sivo, Cody Tuamasebi, and Georgia Wanzi, and Alicia Bell.
Good to see Alicia. Yeah, that's a great pick.
Is the assistant coach. So she was the assistant coach for the Eels Lisa Fiola Cup. And my apologies if I've made a bit of a mess of any of the names there as I was reading through it, John. In the female under-19 City teams, Jessamine Alawali'i, Taylor Falanico, Dallas Graham Withall, Collier Gray, Ava Jones, Fontaine Tafunga, and we should note that River Lialo was unavailable for selections due to HIA protocols.
It'd be pretty outrageous for the player of the tournament to not be picked in the City team.
Exactly, yeah. So, unfortunately, River Lee got concussion in the grand final there. So, they've got a stand-down period. I've got a feeling it might be about 3 matches or something like that they end up missing.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And on the coaching front, Ryan Walker is the assistant coach for that City team. And in the female under-19s country team, the Eels player best on field for the grand final, Tess McWilliams.
That explains a lot, mate. She got that country strength. She got that.
That's it.
Watching her play, she got that real farm country strength right there from shedding off defenders left, right, and centre. No, Chris, you didn't hear Kaiser Pritchard. There is a Kaizen Morgan Pritchard. So it is a slip that you could definitely get on the audible scale there. But yeah, good young back rower there in the 17s.
Frank's daughter?
I believe you might be right. Yeah, so
I've got a feeling that
I think you might be right.
Eisen
That might be Frank the Tank's little girl there. So I say
yes,
little girl,
and,
she's a great athlete. So
I think as well that Isabel Bell and Hayden Bell are brother and sister. I've got a funny feeling there. Well, I'm sure I picked that up in recent weeks that they were brother and sister. So if that's the case, special congratulations to the Bell siblings.
Yes,
with that there.
Hayden and Isabella both having great seasons in their respective teams. And,
and my apologies, I might have called Isabella.
That is a bit of a gotcha, isn't it? Isabella Bell. You can stumble over that one there. And Hayden was a year young too in the Harold Mats, so good selection there for him.
Absolutely. So, John, that actually takes us all the way up to our intermission and your music. But before we do, have we got any questions there, Parramatta questions from our viewers?
I did collate some before we got all off the program here. So let me just go through. We've got some general excitement. Carl, one of our regulars there, saying, "Evening, gents. Looking forward to seeing Mitch and Zach run around on Friday night." He's making the trip, 60s, going up to Newey. Got a good feeling about this weekend. Yeah, I think the energy levels are good, 60s. I think the Knights, they're in a similar terms, like similar to the Parramatta Eels in a macro level struggle right now. But the Eels' form has been trending upwards. Like, yeah, there's been some variance and some dumb stuff that we've done to stop us getting those wins in the last two games. But I do feel like we are on an upward trajectory, and I think that a good performance against the Knights, there we go, could see us nab a pretty solid win.
Yep.
And he also has a follow-up question asking us about our thoughts on Charlie missing out. Matt Dury going into that edge spot. Obviously, Jordan Samrani's now starting to cannibalize those minutes on the edge 60s. He gets good minutes now with that engine of his. What's happening with Charlie? Is he sort of lost in the numbers there, or is it a case of just continuing to try and build him up?
Yeah, I think there's an element this year where Charlie's his load has been managed, in terms of the NRL loading. And what you have to remember is that he missed a chunk of last season with injury. So I don't think they're pushing him too much. I mean, we've even had weeks where he's just rested, like being rested for the week rather than pushing through in any grade. So I really think it's a case of building him up as much as possible, and in terms of his NRL experience. So because really, he didn't even get a lengthy period in New South Wales Cup last year. So it's really a big ask to be coming up from SG ball into first grade. If you go past last year, go back further than that, and he's playing SG ball. So
and
for a forward, that's a big ask.
He's a 21-year-old forward, and yes, there are some players that are dominating the NRL at that age. They are superstars and studs, but Charlie's development trajectory is still very healthy. So if in 18 months we're having the same conversation, like why is he not holding down a spot in first grade? Okay, then we can have a chat about that. Our good mate Chris Ricketts has a bit of a reservation about pursuing Galvin. Says the longer this goes on, or the season goes on, the more I question whether Galvin is the answer when considering the coin we will need to attract him. We have needs all over the park. Galvin may stop us fixing others. Now, that's a fair question, isn't it, 60s? That how much do you want to prioritise into that 5'8" position? Galvin is, I would consider him a blue chip asset from what we've seen, mate. The Eels already have poured resources into that 5'8" position. Dylan Brown's getting market rate in the 6, and by and large has been very good for us. I know that people are down on him because of his earlier season form, but Dylan has, I think, played sort of commensurate to his salary for the most part. I understand the reservations, and indeed I've been that not the devil's advocate 60s, but I have been the opposing voice at times saying that we could look internally towards a Fletcher or a Talatina, or we've got Lynn and Twiddle and Matty Hunter there as well. There's a lot of guys internally that could be a cheaper option, but in saying that too, I think you look at what the Eels aren't spending right now, and surely that even with the recruitment of Galvin, there is a war chest out there to punch some big ticket signings to the club, whether it's next year or the year after.
Yeah, I think. Look, if we look at it this way and look at our spine, with Dylan Brown moving on, you've got a rookie at fullback, and a rookie at dummy half. And they may well be big players of the future, but right now they're rookies, and they're not going to be on big coin because of the fact that they are rookies. In fact, I'm pretty sure Riley Smith will be on, unless he's upgraded, development. He got upgraded to a development deal for this year into next year. So that was an upgrade when he made first grade. So, look, I keep coming back to this. We've got Mitch Moses now for a limited period of time. When I say limited period of time, he's at the back end of his career. Now, look, he might play till he's 34, 35, but he's in his 30s now. And if you're investing that much in Mitch Moses, who is the second best halfback in the world, or at least in Australia, you want to get some return on that. Otherwise, why have such a high quality halfback if you're not surrounding him with quality players?
And the reality is that this is all risk management. Like, yeah, Lachlan Galvin to some degree is a risk, but so would be signing whoever it is, whether, we're chasing Payne Haas or David Fafita. That everything when it comes to these sort of contracts is risk management, and you want to minimize that while it's that crazy cross section of short-term success, long-term viability, risk management, getting the right value. It's why recruitment retention is not a simple game. And the Eels, they've got the money 60s, but they've got to get it right. And Galvin is absolutely one of those key things. And I do think Galvin is as close to a safe bet as you're going to get. And I think it makes sense given what you said about Mitchell Moses. But I do think there is still validity to the other side too. And I don't think there's a singular correct answer here. I think that there are opposing but valid paths for the Eels to go here. And it seems to be an inclination that we're going down the Galvin route. Obviously, it's not official, but there is a lot of talk and conjecture. And, yeah, I've just got to back Jason Riles and his vision here, mate.
Yeah, John, the way I see it is it can't stop just Galvin.
No, God, if it's just Galvin, then we're not treading water, but we're not going – you need to be accelerating, and that is not a full pedal to the metal acceleration.
Yeah, and look, when you look at were they to be able to add Galvin, then you're looking at there's been some decent investment in the back line. And then you look at what's happening in the forwards, and in the forwards it's all been clearing the decks, right? With rumours of more deck clearing to happen at the end of this season. Now, if that all plays out as is expected, the war chest should be, sizable. And we don't know how much they've still got left there this year. It's enough that they can, they still have a top 30 spot, which they will be able to fill and have to fill before June 30. Now, whether that's an upgrade or not, we don't know. But the recruitment has to happen for next year.
Yep.
It will happen. It can't just be Pathways players being elevated, because if it's Pathways players being elevated, then we will be expected to be ultra patient, because they won't have the experience or the high profile players around them other than a few backs.
Yeah, and the Pathways players are a big part of this plan 60s, but like you said, talent and potential need to be balanced out against grit and experience and talent on the top end as well. So yes, recruitment huge here. Let's keep it moving. Chris Hill with a general question about the game on Friday 60s, asking Lomax will just float around the field, right? He won't be consigned to staying on that right wing. Yeah, you got to think that Lomax has a license to attack from different angles and different vantage points against the Newcastle Knights.
Yeah, you'd have to think we'd see him in a similar role to what he had. I think did he only get the one game on the wing before he got his injury?
Yeah. He interchanged with Jordan Samrani a couple of times, wing and centre, offense and defense, but pure wing, I think that was just the one game, yeah.
And by the way, you mentioned him and Samrani in the same sentence. If you've seen Lomax giving it to Jordan on his socials.
The bin chicken.
Yeah, the bin chicken, yeah.
Michael Formosa was building on out my comment about the 4 debuts we've had so far, saying that there's been 12 new players to make their Parramatta club debut this year. Yeah, a lot of churn in the roster 60s. And like I said, Jason Ryle's not afraid to shake up the formula in pursuit of short and long-term success. I got razzed by our mate Chris Ricketts for wearing a Seahawks kit last week. He also says he likes Samarani as a bench utility, value production on the edge, and offers needed coverage in the outside backs. Yeah, that is why I'm really championing this I say transition. He has history in the back row 60s, but we've mentioned players like Murata Niokore, and there's a few others too that have that positional versatility. But a guy that can play 80 minutes or close enough to 80 minutes on the edge, but also cover your centre and wing spots, that's really valuable in the concussion era of the game.
Yeah. John, do you want to just power through the NRL news now, because we were actually toying with avoiding the NRL news with Joey on tonight, but is there any other questions before we power on?
We've got another half a dozen, but we can put them off to the end of the show if you want, or we can do them now. Up to you.
Yeah, look, how about we might move them just to the end of the show, because I just want to really power through the NRL news that we just want to touch on quickly.
Okay.
First of all, we got Trent Robinson shutting down the.
Do you want the music or no? Or will you skip the music?
We might skip the music this week. Save it for next week. Unless you've got have you got something absolutely special, John?
No, it's not special, but it was a bit of fun for our upcoming game this week. But
no, okay, no, you've got to go with it then. You got to go with it.
I'm going to save it for the post game now for the review of the State of Origin game. So we'll keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
Okay, so Trent Robinson shutting down
some silly buggers thoughts between.
Yeah. So there's going to be no early release to the Knights. They're not going to get a winger from the Roosters unless they come to the party and just pay the full freight. Is that the story, John?
The way Robinson's framed it, and bearing in mind that we only hearing one side of the story here, is that there was the framework for a release negotiated, in which the Newcastle Knights will be taking on the entirety of the pro rata salary for Dom Young for the remainder of season 2025, which amounts to about half his salary in our 60s, right? Because season starts in November 1 in terms of their financial year, the way the wages work, the salary cap year, as it were. And the initial understanding was that the Knights will take on the remainder of that cap space. And then the way Robinson framed it is that Newcastle got back to him at the end of the week after negotiating at the start of the week for that initial deal, saying, oh, no, we want you guys to pay some freight. We're going to try and leverage you now because, for whatever reason, they thought that the Roosters would do it. And again, bearing in mind this is just Trent Robinson's side of the story, but if that's true, it's a bit of operating in bad faith from Newcastle there, trying to squeeze some dollars out of the Roosters. And I can understand Newcastle because the rumours are that they are pressed against the cap 60s and that they don't have a lot of manoeuvrability in their 2025 cap. I don't know about 2026. So you can understand why they would try and squeeze the Roosters. But if you're going to squeeze, you got to squeeze at the start. You can't agree to a deal and then say, nah, I want you to pay $100,000 or whatever the offer was. So, yeah, and you're obviously not a huge fan of Trent Robinson and the Roosters, but if what he is saying is true, then you can understand why he is frustrated with what's transpired here.
Yeah, the Knights must have thought they were in the driver's seat.
Yeah, which is crazy because the Roosters have a lot of cap space. They're not squeezed. Dom Young can just sit in New South Wales Cup if they need to. They've got Mark Nawaqanitawase killing it for him on that left wing, whichever wing it is. He is beating Dom Young on form to that selection spot, which Trent Robinson made a very stressed point of going out and putting in public that Mark is killing it, and he's right. Been a great pickup for the Roosters. So not really sure what the gambit is. Maybe there's another side to this story that we're not getting yet, 60s, and I imagine that Mark Tuies, who is the beat journalist for the Newcastle Knights up in the Hunter, or that way, the Newcastle district, might come back with a reply piece by way of the Newcastle Knights this week. But as it stands, it looks like a pretty sloppy work from Newcastle.
And great theatre for viewers.
I mean, rugby league is a soap opera for men, isn't it? It really is. And the ladies too, given how well the NRLW is doing. But it is the masculine equivalent of that daytime soap opera.
Oh, we should mention as well that the Eels NRLW have started their pre-season as well. I imagine all the NRLW teams have started their pre-season. So shout out to all of the players, and especially given that they've got jobs that they're out doing during the day and then heading to training afterwards. So it's a bit like a throwback to the semi-professional days that all rugby league players were going through, and NRLW players are going through that phase now. Maybe not too far down the track, they end up being full-time professional players, but for the time being, we have to admire the fact that they juggle work, family, and their rugby league careers.
New TV deal is
John,
going to be fascinating for the NRLW. It's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Next bit of news: Brandon Smith to South. That's been a
part of the reason. Like the Roosters already had cap space, but they the same week they're releasing Brandon Smith. I don't know how Newcastle thought they had leverage because the Roosters are not pressed. But yeah, the moment we knew that Wayne Bennett was interested in Brandon Smith, and the moment that accelerated or expedited into a contract for next year, you knew the mid-season release was coming. And solid pickup for the Bunnies. He is coming back to full fitness, I believe, and he will augment their forward pack in that, I assume, that hybrid lock forward dummy half role. I feel he'll
be fit for when they play us, for sure.
Almost certainly. In fact, he'll probably be back to 100% just in time for us. I do feel like Brandon's best position is lock forward, supplementing dummy half rather than dummy half that goes to a lock forward. I feel like the teams have learned how to pick on him fatigue-wise and defence-wise when he's playing primary dummy half. But, Souths get a pretty handy acquisition as they look to stay in touch with the top 8.
They're a crazy team to follow. They can look so ordinary.
And then Latrell decides to turn it on and bang a 50-metre field goal in the rain. Crazy. Chris says a few weeks out, he said on because he's on a few podcasts, but I don't know if it was a Jimmy Graham podcast he does, Chris, but a few weeks still for the Cheese. So that probably does put him in a timeline for Parramatta. Hang on. Let's confirm this. So if he's on a 3-week timeline, Eels are in round 11, got the Seagulls, the Panthers, the Dogs. Yeah, well, we play Souths way deep in the season. Yeah, so he'll be 100% healthy for us.
Yep. Okay, next thing, John. Jerome Luai's dad.
Team first mentality, boys. Team first mentality. Look. You can read as much or as little as you want to this 60s. The Tigers got brutally embarrassed. Worse than the Eels got embarrassed by the Storm in round 1, by the way. 64.
I believe there's some really nasty stats that make ours look like, we were premiership contenders.
64-0. Stefano Utoikamanu getting the mother of all revenge games there after all the trash talk that's going on about cutting him for Terrell May, who has been a good pickup. I'm not saying Terrell's dog water after that. But, the Storm turned it on, and Luai's old man took to social media saying the get-out clause has been activated. And obviously people jumped on that, whether it was in jest or whether there's a seed of truth there. When a team gets 64 blot put on them, you always wonder how deep those sort of reservations run. And the reality is, 60s, is that Jerome Luai, for all the talk to Lockie Galvin about not being team first and not being committed to the Tigers and wanting out, he's the player that's got all the player options in his favour. After is it after year 1 or year 2? Is he?
So it's after the second year.
Yeah.
But I believe he can activate it at the end of this season so that he can field offers.
Correct. Yeah. So November 1, he would be eligible
November
to field offers. Yeah. So. Is there something to it? Maybe. Is it really, really funny because of all the stuff that came out in the Pro Tigers press against Galvin? Yeah. I mean, that
John, it's very simple. If he's team first, he just says, look, I don't need those options. And, whether it's the case.
If he was that committed to the Tigers, his family wouldn't be making those sort of posts on social media. So.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and look, we understand that people like to do things tongue in cheek, and whether that's the case or not, I think maybe his dad had some poor timing and poor decision making, and if he was just having a bit of a joke around with it, but because I'm sure there were Tigers supporters who were not very happy about a 64-0 thrashing.
The timing
that'd be the last thing they want to see.
Even if it's tongue in cheek, the timing is terrible. Like your team has just got humiliated after all the there's been reason to believe the Tigers have been on the improve. Their signings are doing well.
I've been taking the counterpoint with that, John. Like
but like they've gotten wins under the belt, 60s, and have they been a bit lucky here and there? Sure,
yes.
But that's enough to have fans buying in, right? And to then have that turned around into the mother of all backside beatdowns, with your star recruit's dad then making an absolute mockery of his son's long-term commitment at the club. Yeah, okay, I can understand why fans will get hot under the collar. So, yeah, I imagine there's going to be some positive PR out of Luai's camp and the Tigers moving forward to try and extinguish any embers there and make it look like everything's sweet as, or eats way, as Spencer Linya would say.
But John, I want to ask you this question. Have the media gone light on the Tigers for a 64-0 hammering? If when you think about the Eels getting hammered in round one, right? And the flack that was copped there, if we just got flogged 64-0, again, it'd be merciless.
Well, to add on, if we'd just done that, and then Zach Lomax's dad had come out on social media talking about something similar, could you imagine the week to week like sort of plastered back page headlines? Yeah. So the Tigers did get off light, but we know that they're something of a media darling right now. There is obviously the proxy war between them and Isaac Moses going on, but a lot in the media are aligning themselves with the West Tigers right now as the feel-good story of this year.
Yeah. Well, it brings us now to the final part of the NRL news. Shenanigans, exactly. Typical Penrith tactics there. Now, I know that the Cowboys have been caught with that, and your mate, the referee, is like straight onto him. No, that's not going to fly. But it flew with the Panthers. They got away with it until it was caught on camera.
Yeah.
And to me, it was no great surprise. I don't know why they feel they have
You're not even putting
how we feel as Eels supporters about some of the things that have happened over the years in Panthers game, and particularly that finals game against Penrith, where it wasn't just one, it was about half a dozen incidents throughout the game, which every decision went one way, and they were significant. They weren't little. We had rule changes as a result of some of that. The stuff was inexplicable, what happened there that was missed by officials. Maybe in the case of the trainer going on, and not going on, but going to the sideline official and stopping play, put the match officials in a bind where they did have to stop play because they'd been asked to stop play in that instance. But this time, it might seem like a little thing and play on and what have you, and it's all a bit of fun and gamesmanship or what have you. But given that the referee saw the Cowboys trainer do it and just went, no, none of that.
Well, I agree. Two things. The trainer should never touch the ball. He is not an active participant in the game. He has no framework in which he is meant to be legally touching the ball. So that should not happen. And this goes back to the whole issue of trainers being on the field for too long, which has crept back into the game quite sinisterly, actually. After that big crackdown we had a few years back, trainers are everywhere again. And two, if he is caught impeding the game in such a manner that acts against, we heard the rule being inducted against or invoked against Josh Curran the other game a few weeks back for us 60s, more than a few weeks now, obviously, where it's against the spirit of the game. It breaks the game's code of conducts. They should then be sent off, like whatever the equivalent is for a non-playing member of the game. You can be red carded as a non-active participant of a game in soccer. You can be thrown out of a game in baseball. Todd Smith, whoever the official is in a given game, if he sees a trainer trying to invoke gamesmanship and skirt the spirit of the game, then that trainer or staff member should be ejected from the game, from the premises.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, mate. Wholeheartedly.
And a suspension should then follow up. These are it's the moral fabric of the game where, yes, there's wrestle and yes, there's all sorts of bullshit that goes on between two teams trying to get the rub of the green and manipulate rules in their favors. That is the 13 and 17 when you invoke the bench there too, but the 13 gladiators out there battling their asses off. The trainers have no right to be influencing that contest. So send them out, or throw them out, suspend them, and even if they're repeat infringers, as we've seen with some of those Penrith blokes, maybe we need to start talking about deregistration.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, John, we put off some questions before.
Yes, let's punch through this one because we are closing in on an hour 40 here, and we thank everyone who's stuck through Finn and Fick here. Good mate Josh is in chat saying the Bears are back. They have us pipped for the premiership drought. Yes, the concurrent years start running again, 60s, once the Bears are back in 2027. And yes, they will then take over as the longest premiership drought because as the Perth iteration of the Bears, you do inherit that history. They get all the, not so much all the success, but some of the success that the Bears enjoyed early on. And all the I suppose every fan's second team sort of moniker until Papua New Guinea come in. So fair play to Josh.
Now, if they'd been playing, they'd be up to, 103 years as premiership drought?
God. And we got a spicy one here from Gallagher who lavished some praise on Joey. He says, I hear rumours that Hopgood may be on his way out and a middle for the ages will be recruited in his place. I don't know if he's still...
A middle for the ages?
Yeah. I don't know if he's still in chat, Gallagher. Well, maybe...
Not a forward from the Middle Ages.
Well, we could probably use a real hard-nosed player from the Middle Ages. That wouldn't hurt too much. But a middle forward for the ages, well... That certainly has me thinking about a handful of elite players, 60s, that could possibly fit.
Are we not going to get a hint? We've got to get a hint of something.
I don't know if you're still here, Gallagher.
Give us something. Just give us something.
If you are, and you can give us a hint, drop on in there, and I'll press on until we see any signs of life in the chat there. Paul McMullen with a recruitment question in retrospect. Was it a mistake not being in the mix for Stefano or Terrell May? Fair question, 60s. I don't really think the Eels were a serious chance of landing Stefano given the state of flux for our roster and the fact that the Melbourne Storm came knocking, mate. And they came knocking with money. And when Melbourne come knocking with money, even silly money from other clubs, it doesn't get you in the same ballpark, I don't think.
No. And look, I would have happily taken either of those two players, and but I don't know if the Eels. Yeah, I don't think they ever entertained Stefano. I think they should have. But with regard to May, I would have liked to have thought that he was somewhere on their radar.
You have to think 60s, and you'd have to think that the club would have done their due diligence, and maybe the Tigers' offer was just better. But there were concerns about May's commitment to the game coming out of his departure from the Roosters. And I know the Roosters sort of moved the goalposts around a bit, but one of the recurring themes was questions about his investment and commitment to the game long term. And if the Eels were nervous about him maybe getting cold feet at any point in that contract, you can understand why they maybe were reticent to offer the deal. But he's obviously having a great season. He's been a huge pickup for the Tigers, and arguably, I don't think it's even arguably, he's been their best recruit, better than Luai. He's been.
Yeah, I think, given that the players that the Tigers have in their team, I should be talking about them being an improved team this year, and I think until the end of the season comes, and they're in a different ladder position, or in a significantly different ladder position, I'm not prepared to say that they're an improved team. I'm saying they should be an improved team.
Gallagher has got back to his 60s. He has put his cards on the table, which I respect. He's saying he thinks it's Tino. Big T. Mr. Malawi says there's a connection there with Jason Riles and the Eels sort of in tune with the options he has in his player contract. So, I mean, I wouldn't be saying no to Big T. I'll tell you that.
You'd be talking game changer.
Yeah, that is a build around for your forward pack, 100%. That is.
I mean, there's the connection going back to the Storm days. Tino has said himself that he's happy being up on the Gold Coast, hasn't he?
He's always indicated that he likes life on the Gold Coast, which a lot of players do. It's a very good spot.
Yeah.
But look, I'm not saying the Eels are absolutely branding at 60s, but the Gold Coast are a franchise that has floundered for, what, a decade and a half now? They've got the one finals win to their name back in, was it 2009? Was that what
yes, we played them in the finals in 2009. So if they've only been in there once, that was the year. It was definitely in our run. We played them in the week before the Bulldogs, so second week of finals.
So
hammered them.
Yeah, John Wright had the try off the scrum in that one. I remember that.
Yeah.
That would be a crazy pickup. So look, if that does eventuate, gonna have to dap up Gallagher for the male there. Definitely one to watch there. In a similar sort of vein, Chris Hill asks, why don't we go after Payne Haas? His contract is up soon, I think. I believe you're right. I think he's eligible to be negotiated with at November 1. Obviously, a player of the same caliber of Tino 60s. Either one of those players. Either one of those players is slam dunk. You got to imagine the Eels put Tino. If Tino's there, you chase Tino. If Payne's there, you chase Payne. You chase both of them. I don't think you can expect to get both, but you got to. If they're both there to be courted, then you'd hope the club are in on both of them and get one of them. Jamie says, surprise Matto didn't get the nod this week. Has he played his last game in first grade for the Blue and Gold? And there's a follow-up question from Sinkers saying, any update on the rumour about Matto being shopped around? I think those two questions go pretty much hand in hand, 60s. Matto was close. My understanding is that Ryan Madison was close to getting a return to first grade. But Jason Riles, again, showing conviction in the young talent in this club, giving Toni Mataele the chance.
I don't think he's played his last game. Now, the reason that I think that is twofold. Number one, it's hard to, like, if the Eels, well, we know that they are interested in clearing the decks, and that he would be one of the forwards. It would be likely that if a club came knocking, the Eels probably wouldn't stand in their way. A club's not going to come knocking for a player that's playing New South Wales Cup. That just goes without saying. They have to see that there would be value in a particular player. So Matto's not going to be able to show his wares at that level. I think combined with the lack of forwards that we've had at different times this season, or forwards in form, that you may well see Matto playing first grade. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's sooner rather than later, to be honest. So, But I don't think he's played his last first grade game for those reasons.
Last question, 60s. Good response there too, by the way, mate. From Gallagher asking, do we gamble on Taylor May as the last top 30 player for this year? Backline situation, it's interesting, isn't it? We've got a carousel of injuries, and theoretically, if everyone's fit, Sean Russell misses out, and he's a pretty handy backup to have. Taylor May, talented player, comes with some baggage though. And again, I mentioned his brother getting those question marks about his commitment to the game. Taylor literally 2 weeks ago was saying he's given the game away on hiatus to pursue other interests, and now he's back looking for a chance to get his foot in the door. I think he's destined for the West Tigers. I think that with his brother Terrell there, it's not quite a fait accompli, but not far off. I think I would expect the Eels to do their due diligence. 60s, they will kick the tires, they will do the background checks, and maybe have a meeting with him. But you got to be careful of how much you let up into that back line, and you want as many great players in that back line as possible. But I think we're close to the point where you risk over investing in the back line, and it's injuries and suspensions could mean that he would get a run at Parramatta. But by the same token, Iongi, the Fox, then you've got obviously Simonson back when he gets healthy, Will Penasini and Zach Lomax. That's a fair bit of cap space invested into your top back line.
Yeah, I agree. I to the point, I'd be surprised if the Eels would do their due diligence.
Yeah, fair.
I just come from
a perspective where I think a club should be in on theoretically every player that's available, just because you want to do your research in case you then circle back around to them in the future. And so knowing now, like whether Taylor May is a fit or not could help you in 12 months' time or 18 months' time if he's a free agent. So on that note, I think we'll start wrapping things up, mate. It's been another mammoth podcast. Everyone has been brilliant in chat as always. We've had some great questions, some great insights, and a great little thread now to follow for Gallagher. Because, geez, mate, if you're on the money there, and then we probably owe you a beer or free. And that would be a hell of a scoop to break on TCT and the tip sheet. Big fella.
Absolutely, and really appreciate people that stuck with us, because we were a little bit all over the place.
Helter skelter,
with,
baby. Yeah.
It was helter skelter. She's coming down fast. Really appreciate people sticking with us. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course, the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club, for their support. Really appreciative of Joey Grima joining us tonight. Hopefully it helped to clarify a few things that a few questions people might have about PNG. And as I said, for us, I think it's great that there's such a Parramatta connection to the establishment of that franchise up in PNG, with both Joey Grima and Andrew Hill driving what's happening up there. So, we really appreciated Joey's time. And as you can still hear, he's still got blue and gold.
Plenty passionate about the Eels, exactly, mate.
And you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who knows more about pathways than Joey Grima. So, some great insights there. John, thank you for working through all the technicals tonight, because people may not know this, but for pretty much the hour before we went to air tonight, there was a lot to work through to make sure that we at least got the audio for Joey, because there was some concerns that we were even going to get anything.
Yeah,
we managed to
make it work though.
We managed to make it work. So again, thank you for joining us. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels.
Well said, mate. Catch you guys later.